Our Lady of Guadalupe, or La Virgen de Guadalupe, is considered a Marian apparition. What that means is that it is a reported supernatural appearance by Mary, the mother of Jesus. La Virgen de Guadalupe's apparition is specific to Mexico. There are many theories about Guadalupe's apparition. My theory is that she is the poster image of the first nonviolent resistance on the North American continent. Three apparitions occurred between December 9 through December 12 in 1531 to the indigenous person named Cuatlatoatzin. We know him by his Catholic name, Juan Diego. These apparitions occurred on the outskirts of Mexico City on Tepeyac Hill. Tepeyac was known as a sacred site of the native goddess Tonatzin. Guadalupe tasked Juan Diego to inform the first Archbishop of Mexico, Juan de Zumárraga, that she demanded that a temple be erected to her on Tepeyac Hill. Here in this graphic, we see that Juan Diego feels that he needs proof, he needs to provide proof to the church that he has actually witnessed the apparition. The proof that is provided to him by the Virgen de Guadalupe are roses. He picks the roses and places them on this garment called a tilma, which is a multi-purpose garment used to cover yourself if you're cold or to carry items. The Virgen de Guadalupe helps rearrange the roses. When Juan Diego uh, sees the Archbishop and has the opportunity to share the story of the apparition, he releases the tilma so that the Archbishop can see the roses. The real miracle at that moment are not just the roses, but that the image of the Virgen de Guadalupe has been imprinted on his tilma. Supposedly, it is this tilma that Juan Diego was wearing that is located in the Basilica in Mexico City. I was born in Mexico, and I was brought to the US when I was a little kid, about 4 or 5 years old. And I grew up in both sides of the border, um, seeing the Virgen de Guadalupe, either in our homes or in our neighborhoods, on tattoos, on lowrider cars, on bags, on candles, and of course, on murals. These are just some of the murals that I've witnessed and documented over time. I've also been witness to these peregrinajes, which are honoring the Virgen de Guadalupe. This one was quite a few years ago in East Los Angeles, terminating at East Los Angeles City College. These peregrinajes usually include platform trucks that have reenactments of the apparition, have, of course, large images or sculptures of the Virgen de Guadalupe or of Juan Diego, include danzantes and young people performing the apparition, and also, of course, the roses, because the roses are the ones that are offered to the Virgen de Guadalupe on her feast day, whether you're in Mexico or in Los Angeles. She is not just honored on her feast day in the Southwest, but also here is a procession occurring on her feast day in New York City. I contacted the Basilica via the website and an email to ask about the visitors, the numbers of visitors. I was curious. And so the response many years ago was that on the daily, there are about 10,000 visitors, On the weekends, there's an average of 150,000 visitors. On her feast weekend, the weekend of December 12th, uh, yearly, there are anywhere between 5 to 7 million visitors. And on the average, about 24 million visitors yearly. This here, this structure is the basilica, this round structure. It was erected in 1976, and it is where the image of the Virgen de Guadalupe is located. The building was constructed in the round to allow maximum amount of viewership from anywhere to as many people as possible. In the background are previous iterations of the basilica building. This is the inside of the basilica. You can see the altar, and on the altar center, of course, is the image of the Virgen de Guadalupe. To the right is a painting of Juan Diego. This is the Zócalo, the historic center of Mexico City. On the right hand side is the Palacio de Gobierno, where if you go inside, you will see a murals by Diego Rivera and other artists. On the left hand side is the Catedral, which is the seat of power of the Archdiocese in Mexico City. And it is where the Archbishop Juan de Zumárraga would have been when Juan Diego was seeking audience with him regarding the apparition of the Virgen de Guadalupe. Between the two buildings, the Palacio de Gobierno, the government palace, and the cathedral, is an archaeological site. It is now a museum. It is the Museo Templo Mayor. Using Google Maps, I traced more or less Juan Diego's steps. It would have taken Juan Diego at least an hour and a half to walk from Tepeyac Hill to the Cathedral in order to meet the Archbishop. He would have done this several times during his mission to relay the message from the Virgen de Guadalupe to the Archbishop. Juan Diego, after trying several times to meet with the Archbishop and being denied, said that he needed some kind of proof. The Virgen de Guadalupe then miraculously produced roses, Castilian roses. She asked that Juan Diego select a few of those roses and bring them to her. He collected those roses in this garment he was wearing, which is called a tilma. The tilma is a garment that was used to cover yourself if you were cold or even to carry things. She rearranged those roses on Juan Diego's tilma and directed him to only show the roses when he was in front of the Archbishop. Growing up, I was told that these roses were incredibly miraculous for several reasons. And some of those reasons were that they were not native to Mexico, they were Castilian roses from Spain. And also that it was December and it would have been too cold for them to grow in this specific area. One of the things to consider is that the Virgen de Guadalupe appeared in 1531. 1531 was a decade after Mexico City had been conquered by the Spaniards. So it is conceivable that in a decade, there would have been someone who would have brought a Castilian rose to Mexico City and would have grown some roses, right? In a decade, perhaps a rose bushes or several rose bushes would have grown. The other thing is that I grew up in Los Angeles, and Los Angeles and Mexico City are in a very similar climate zone. Uh, Also, my mom grew roses, and I know that on the Virgen de Guadalupe's feast day, she would usually clip some roses and place them in her personal altar at home. And So therefore, growing up, I thought, oh, my mom's pretty miraculous that she's growing roses when they're not supposed to be seasonal. The other thing to note is that what is always offered to the Virgen de Guadalupe on her feast day are roses, and many of those roses are homegrown, just like my mother's roses. So, in a way, the roses are not that miraculous, I guess, or special, right? So, what was really miraculous was, in a way, not just the roses on gathered in Juan Diego's tilma, but the fact that the image of the Virgen de Guadalupe was imprinted on his tilma. And supposedly it is this image and this tilma that is the image in the basilica. In addition to Juan Diego, the other person that is incredibly significant to the story is the Archbishop, Juan de Zumárraga. Juan de Zumárraga, the first archbishop, was known to be a very prolific writer. He wrote lots of sermons and reports. His biographer, Joaquin Garcia y Casbalceta, in this painting here, said that he had done lots of research on all the writings and the archives of Sumarga, and that nowhere, anywhere, did he see on any letter or any report or any sermon or anything any mention of the Virgen de Guadalupe nor Juan Diego. So I think that really brings into question why someone like Sumaraga would not have said anything or written anything on the Virgen de Guadalupe or on this incredibly important historical event. So here we have the conquest of Tenochtitlan in 1521, the apparition of the Virgen de Guadalupe in 1531, and immediately after her apparition, there were native individuals who peacefully converted to Catholicism. Whereas before they were resisting, they were being killed, murdered, enslaved, and everything was being taken away from them, right? And so it's not until after the apparition of the Virgen of Guadalupe that these individuals begin to peacefully convert to the conqueror's religion. It wasn't until 1556 that the story of the Virgen de Guadalupe and her apparition were recorded by an individual named Antonio Valeriano. He was one of the individuals documenting the stories of the indigenous population for Fray Bernardino Sahagún. The Nican Mopua was translated many years later in 1649 into Spanish, but it was basically the Nican Mopua translated. The church, the cathedral, was held these informaciones jurídicas, basically trials in 1666 to see if the Virgen de Guadalupe was actually as miraculous as some would state. The church was very not sure about that. They actually believed that it was a dangerous native belief, and so it was after these informaciones jurídicas or trials that the Virgen de Guadalupe was agreed to be miraculous and therefore became part of the Catholic Church in Mexico. In our history, our Mexican history, and our activist revolutionary history, she has been present both in the 1810 Mexican independence from Spain, the 100 years later, 1910, in the Mexican Revolution led by Zapata and Pancho Villa, and also in the US, the United Farm Workers Union led by Cesar Chavez and co-founding member Dolores Huerta. For many of us, La Virgen de Guadalupe is more than a religious icon. Many of us are cultural Catholics. Being a cultural Catholic means that usually, and if, we enter a church, it's a family celebration, such as a baptism, a wedding, or a quinceañera. Many of us feminist Mexican and Chicana artists have a very complex and complicated relationship with La Virgen de Guadalupe. In the 1970s, artist Esther Hernandez and Yolanda Lopez re-envisioned this cultural icon as an empowered image, a female image that is able to fight for civil rights and able to multitask and take a walk. These re envisioned artworks have faced intense backlash from Catholic individuals and groups who view these artworks as disrespectful and irreverent. To hear more about these controversies, I recommend watching the video I Love Lupe.